Hey guys! All right, I'll just wait a little bit longer for people to join in. I hope everyone is having a good Saturday. Hi! I'll start here just a few more minutes. I'll just let people to join in. Hi! I am. A few more minutes. All right, I'll just go ahead and start. So, as most of you know, I have lost 60 pounds eating low carb. In this live video, I will discuss how I knew the signs that let me know that I had become fat adapted. Now, what is fat adaptation? Fat adaptation simply means the body's ability to burn fat as energy when primarily fat is available either through body fat or through diet. Now, my previous diet included very high carbohydrate foods, fats, proteins. I loved carbohydrate. If I had a plate that had meat and it had pasta and vegetables, I would eat the carbs, the pasta first, likely eat the vegetables, and would barely touch my meat. That was my previous diet. Now, the body has two sources of energy: carbohydrate as a form of glucose and fat. In the presence of both carbohydrates and fat, the body uses the carbohydrates first and it stores energy. It stores the fat. It uses carbohydrate first and stores the fat. Now, by eating the way I used to eat, I basically trained my body to use carbohydrate as energy. Now, this pattern of eating led my body to depend on carbs for energy. Now, if you're following me so far and if what I'm saying makes sense, just type W. That lets me know what I am saying makes sense. Just type W if you're following me and it makes sense. Now, I started eating a low carb diet roughly about 5 years ago. When I transitioned to eating low carb, the low carb and the ketogenic diet, of course, my body needed to relearn how to use fat as a source of energy. Now, this essentially, in plain English, is fat adaptation, also known as metabolic flexibility. Now, if you're still following me, type WL. If you're watching the replay, just type replay. If you're following me and watching the replay, just type replay. Okay? So, how long did it take me to know that I had become fat adapted? It took me roughly about 6 to 8 weeks for me to know that I had become fat adapted. Now, don't use this number as gospel, because individual results vary. It takes some people longer, it takes some people shorter, but for me, it took me between 6 to 8 weeks to know that I had become fat adapted. Now, these are the signs that led me to know. The initial sign was ketones in my urine. Now, that is a very good way to know that you've started becoming fat adapted when you use like a strip and you test your urine and it shows a purpley color, that's a very good sign at the beginning, because what ketones are a byproduct of the body burning fat for energy. At the beginning, your body is still getting fat adapted, so it does not know how to use all the ketones for energy. So a lot of it is released in our urine. Now here's a strip that I got, a ketone strip that I got. I just bought this off of Amazon. I mean, it was probably the cheapest one available, but this is what I used to tell me that I had started becoming fat adapted. And if you can see, it shows a trace of ketones, and the color slowly gets darker and darker until it gets to purple. Now, like I said earlier, the ketone strips are a good way to tell that you are becoming fat adapted. It usually happens anywhere from 3 to 5 days. You'll start seeing traces of ketones in your urine. As you get fat adapted, these ketone strips do not work. A better measure to test how much ketones are in your body is through a blood test, but you don't need that. Okay, that was the first sign that I was becoming fat adapted. The second sign that led me to know that I had started becoming fat adapted was my mental clarity. For some reason, my brain fog during the day just went away. I could think clearly. I didn't understand why, but now I know why. Because the brain prefers ketones as a source of fuel. And that was essentially what was happening. Because I had changed my energy source to fat, I was releasing ketones, and the body prefers ketones. So mental clarity was the second sign that I knew I was becoming fat adapted. The third sign to let me know that I was becoming fat adapted was my hunger level. I started becoming less and less hungry. I was able to fast a little longer, not a lot, but I was able to fast a little longer. That's a great sign. That was a great sign to me that I was becoming fat adapted. My hunger level was the fourth sign. I was less hungry. I had more energy. And the fifth sign was my carb cravings, a major decrease in my carb cravings. Remember, I mentioned earlier that I loved carbs. That was my preferred type of food. When I switched to a low carb ketogenic diet, my carb cravings started to decrease. I felt no need to eat the breads, the pasta, the crackers, pretzels. It just decreased. That was a great sign that I was becoming fat adapted. The next sign that let me know that I was becoming fat adapted was my need to snack. I used to be a notorious snacker. I grazed 24/7. I could not go 2 hours without putting food in my mouth. And what type of food was I putting in my mouth? High refined carbohydrates. And once I ate that, I was happy. What did that do? It shot my blood glucose really high, increases insulin, and within 2 hours, it drops. What did that do? It let me know I need to eat again. I snacked all day. The moment I started becoming fat adapted, my need to snack decreased significantly. I was able to go longer. I was able to just eat my 3 square meals a day. And then I slowly ate 2 meals a day without snacks. And then I eventually closed up that eating window. That's when I knew I was fat adapted. That's how I am able to currently eat 1 meal a day and feel just fine. I mean, this is the way eating the low carb diet makes me feel. It's amazing. I have high energy, I feel good, and I know that I am fat adapted because I have no carb cravings. I have very little hunger. My blood sugar is obviously low. That's why I don't snack as often. I can fast longer. And you know, my taste buds have changed. I crave, you know, high, nutritious, you know, fatty, almost fatty foods. I no longer have all the sugar, the sweet cravings, the sweet sugary cravings. Now, every once in a while, I'll crave something sweet. But once I eat a zero sugar treat during my eating window, that satisfies that craving. Okay, now, if everything I have said makes sense to you, please type W0. What I'm saying makes sense. Type W0. And if you have any questions regarding what I just discussed, just type it and let me know. And I can answer your questions right here in real time. I hope this live video resonates with some of you. Oh, let's see. Jeremy typed W-O. Okay. Someone's following. That's good. That's good to know. Awesome. Awesome. All right. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll log off here. W-O. Let's see. W-O. Lots of people are typing. I'm glad. Good. Good, good, good. Okay, just to recap, the signs that let me know that I was fat adapted. Those signs began roughly between 6 and 8 weeks of going keto and low carb, eating a ketogenic diet and a low carb diet. First sign was ketosis in my ketones in my urine. I used these keto strips. These I just got from Walmart. I'm sorry, from Amazon. They're probably the cheapest ones I found. But this, within 3 days, I was able to just test my urine, and I found that I was releasing ketones. Now, the more advanced you get, the less ketones show up in your urine strip because your body has learned how to utilize all the fat that it produces, all the fat ketones that it produces while burning fat. Now, the third step, the third sign that let me know that I was fat adapted was my mental clarity. Just the brain fog went away. I had more energy, and the ketones were going straight to my brain. Liked the ketones. It loves ketones as energy. And that explained why the brain fog went away. I had higher energy. I had reduced carb cravings. I was less hungry, and I snacked way less. Let's see. How often do you test your urine? If he just asked how often, you can test them as often as you like. When you wake up in the morning, I won't suggest testing it right after you've had a meal that contained a little bit of carbs, but you could test it as often as you like, as often as you like to buy these. I mean, I tested them a lot because I was curious at the beginning to know if I was in ketosis. So I tested them as often. It doesn't matter. You test them as often as you can. But like I said, the more fat adapted you get, the less these strips are accurate. Now, you can also test your amount of ketones you produce through your breath. There is a machine, which I've never used, that can test the amount of ketones you produce through your breath. Now, if you've noticed, if you have been keto for a little while, at the beginning, if you have that metallic taste in your mouth, those are actually ketones that you're tasting. That's another way to test the amount of ketones that you were secreting, and that tells you that you are in ketosis. It does not say you were fat adapted. It just tells you you were getting there. Now, doing the blood work is the most accurate way to test the amount of ketones in your body, but that's irrelevant, really, because if you see these signs that I saw that let me know that I was fat adapted, you are fat adapted, and you'll see the weight fall off. Okay, let's see. Okay, Lynn says, those strips don't work for me, but everything you're saying is true. Now, that could be so. That could be, and I can understand the strips not working. I actually know someone who started the ketogenic diet and the ketones never worked. It just remained, it just never went past the first trace. But, however, this person lost a significant amount of weight. They stayed on the ketogenic diet. They were able to fast longer. It showed that they were fat adapted, but this doesn't work. It's an individual basis. There might be something going on. You might have an autoimmune issue going on. There are different things could cause the strips to not work. But if you see all the other signs, you are well on your way to being fat adapted. Lynn, I hope I answered your question. Let's see, any more questions? All right, guys, if everything I have said makes sense to you, just type W0. I might be going live again later on today. It's beautiful outside. I am thinking about just going out just for a walk. I may, depending on how I feel, go live again. And I will catch up with all of you then. Let's see, I have one more question. These strips didn't work for me either. There you go. There you go. So if he said these strips didn't work for her either, that's okay. That is A-okay. And like I said, the strips, the breathalyzer, there's like a machine you breathe into that could also test your ketones, or doing blood work could also test your ketones. The blood work is expensive. The breathalyzer, also expensive. I never saw a need for them. The strips, fortunately for me, worked. However, it doesn't work anymore. I'm way fat adapted. It does not work anymore. So if the strips don't work for you, just keep going. It just means that your body has other things going on. It does not mean that the diet is not working. It just means that there might be other things going on. I mean, it's on an individual basis. All right, guys. I'm gonna log off here. Thanks for joining my live, and I will see you when I go live later on today. Bye.